Welcome everyone to the second episode of the Sports Hub. I'm Michael Wengrzyn, and joining me today are Alex Strouf and Jacob Sennholz. Guys, how was your week, and are you ready to talk about some sports today?
Michael, let's not even focus on our week. Happy 21st birthday, my friend.
Oh, thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
That's all that matters today, yeah. Happy birthday. Have a good and fun night, my friend.
I will. And even though it's my 21st, it's a good day to always talk about sports, no matter even if it is my birthday or not.
Spot on. Let's do it.
Let's do it. We'll dive right in. We'll be talking about Pointers Sports, the Green Bay Packers, the NBA, a Motorsports update, the MLB playoffs, and some buy or sell. The Pointers football team suffered their third loss of the season on Saturday against UW-Platteville in the Wyatt Conference opener, losing 20-6. The Pointers struggled to score points all game until they got a late touchdown in the fourth quarter. The Pointers had more total yards of offense than the Pioneers for the game, 352 to 321, but struggled to score points. The Pointers used two quarterbacks in the game. Matt Hermansky completed 13 of 23 passes for 170 yards and one touchdown, while Mitchell Neubauer completed 12 of 21 passes for 111 yards and one interception. Mitchell Neubauer led the Pointers in rushing with 33 yards on 17 carries. Running back Jahai Stegall led the Pointers in receiving with 85 yards on 6 receptions. So guys, looking at this game, what went wrong for the Pointers?
Well, Michael, you and I called this game, and it was a fun game. It was back and forth, but the biggest thing that went wrong is just the fact that Stevens Point couldn't score when they got inside the 20. They started multiple drives way down on their own end of the field, even at their 10, 15, 20-yard line, and would drive the ball 60 yards beautifully downfield. Then they just couldn't punch it in the end zone. There was kicking woes by both teams, so we left some points out on the field because of our kicking game. And then overall, just the rushing game really wasn't able to get going. Bosick and Stegall each had pretty good games in their own rights, but just the straight-up rushing wasn't really there. So,
Alex?
Look, all I've seen from this game is the box score, so I'll get that out first and foremost. However, two-quarterback system, we've seen that become more prevalent over time, and guess what? It doesn't work. It's as simple as that. You had Hermansky, who was your number one guy throughout the beginning of the year, and now it seems they may go in the direction of Neubauer, which is the same thing they were doing last season. And guess how that worked last season? It didn't work. I understand Greg Breitbach is in his first season at the helm of the Pointers team. He needs to figure out things. A lot of these guys were here before him, so he doesn't know what everybody's strengths are yet, so he needs to see them in actual competition. And at this point, it's already time, not necessarily to call every game a loss, but to ship this season in and just figure out what you're working with toward next year. And I think that's what he's doing at the quarterback position, trying to find who the number one guy is.
Yeah, and we've seen like this dual quarterback system last year with both Hermansky and Neubauer taking the majority of snaps, and that was under former head coach Tom Jernell. But Breitbach is no stranger to this program. He was an assistant here many years ago, and even though it's now his team and now he's the head coach, there's a chance that, if there's one guy that struggles, he could put another guy in and try to keep him in the game. But it's good to have somebody to rely on when you have one of your quarterbacks struggle or go down at all in the game.
Right, that's always what you want. You want your best 11 on the field at all time, and I think, like I said, as a first-year head coach, he's trying to figure things out. So he's going to take something that would be seen as riskier if it was a veteran head coach on a very winning program. At this point, the Pointers are neither of those things. They have neither of those things. Not a winning season, nor a veteran head coach. So he's going to take risk. He's going to play the cards the way he believes should be, something that could be beneficial for the future. So I think it's a good move by Breitbach right now. As I said, it's not going to be a positive season, but in order to take those steps towards success in the future, he needs to play cards in a risky fashion, and I like what he's doing.
Well, and I think, too, it was, at least this last week, it was a lot about the flow of the game and how the offense was moving because Hermansky started off that game. He threw an interception backed up on his own goal line, and it turned into a Platteville touchdown. So Coach ended up going with Neubauer. And when Neubauer first came in, you and I both commented that the offense was moving much quicker, much more efficiently. He was moving them down the field.
Yeah.
But then by halfway through the third quarter, the defense had kind of figured out Neubauer and the quarterback run first type of situation that the Pointers offense was in. So he went back to Hermansky, who offers you more of a pure quarterback type look, moving around in the pocket, finding more than just your first read. So again, I think that is definitely looking into next year into who's going to be your guy. Both
Right.
these guys are juniors, but I also think he's kind of just trying to feel out the game, feel out the situation, and I think that's what was happening against Platteville.
Yeah, I think both of you two make fair points on the quarterback situation, and who knows what they're going to do this Saturday against UW Eau Claire and throughout the rest of conference play. Hopefully that they can work this out, and it doesn't have to come down to a situation where they're stuck on trying to get that system going still.
And both quarterbacks at this point are expecting to come in and out of the game, as both stayed very engaged, kept their helmets on in the sidelines, even when they were getting pulled in and out of the game. So
We'll see how that goes, and hopefully it'll go out really well for the Pointers. What is one area that the Pointers need to improve on in the most?
Clearly, it's getting on the board. I think offensively, like we've talked and harped on so far, is you need to figure out who your best 11 are in every situation. And not scoring points in this game, look, you need to score points against Platteville. That's the easiest way I can put it. Another test in the lower half of the conference against Eau Claire this Saturday. I'll be there. And you know what? You need to find a way to get that offense either field goal 3 or 7 almost every drive. I mean, that's obviously the goal of an offense in a football game. You want to put up as many points as you can and more points than the other team. That's breaking down football very simply for you. Scoring 6 points against UW Platteville, well, what do you guys think about that? That's not good, by the way. You need to score more 6, especially against a team like Platteville. When it's Whitewater, when it's Oshkosh, I understand if you're only putting up 6 points because those D3 teams are so prestigious. Those programs have so much history. But a team like Platteville, 6 points, that's it?
Bit disappointing, definitely, for sure.
definitely disappointing. And again, we mentioned they were moving the ball pretty well, over 350 yards of total offense on the day. But again, as Alex pointed out, they weren't able to punch it into the end zone. 6 points is not going to win you hardly any football games. And beyond that, definitely special teams need some work. There was a few missed field goals, and the punting game really wasn't very good either. A lot of the punts, don't really know if it's more on the lineman or the punter for this situation, but a lot of them went less than 30 yards. They had over 5 seconds of hang time seemingly, but didn't really go anywhere. So I think that's my 2 things would definitely be special teams and getting the ball in the end zone.
Yeah, overall, I think it's a work in progress, and I think this week the Pointers definitely need to emphasize on getting the pieces right for their game on Saturday.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
And as mentioned before, the Pointers' next game is this Saturday on the road against UW Eau Claire. The Pointers women's volleyball team hosted UW Platteville on Saturday. The Pointers got the early lead by winning the first set 25-16. The Pioneers responded with a dominant second set, winning 25-12. The Pointers then grabbed the next 2 sets to seal the 3-1 victory and their 4th consecutive. April Gale led the Pointers with 23 kills, 11 digs, and 4 blocks. This was her 15th double-double in 21 matches this season. They are now 14-7 on the season. So guys, what makes this team look so good?
Look, Micah, let me lead this off. So I'm actually the PA announcer for this team, so I've seen every home game they've had this season just about. This team is so good because everybody finds their role. They know their role. It's a very well-oiled machine, to put it nicely. You know, April Gale obviously is the head horseman. She is absolutely terrific. 15 double-doubles in 21 games, that's unheard of. She actually won National Player of the Year, Player of the Week in Division III this past week with that dominating performance against UW Platteville. So that said, Rachel Hine was terrific in this game. They've been without Tara Emmy, a outside hitter off the bench. She had an ankle sprain, so she's been out. So Rachel Hine filled that role, and she was terrific. I think she was the second most dominant player in all of this game. She looked terrific, and a lot of other girls filling in key roles. You know, Emma Peterson, their freshman libero, has been terrific, and several other names, Ellie Adams and Maddie Lawson, who play just 2 sophomores that play just about every minute. So they've been terrific so season long. A WIAC championship is in the sights. It'll be tough to get at 14-7, but it's definitely a doable goal for the Pointers.
Jake, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Alex summed it up really well. Just, again, to reiterate, 15 double-doubles in 21 games, that is just simply amazing. It's almost unheard of, so that's incredible. And then another thing that this team does really well is not allowing the game to get to that 5th set. They wrap it up in the first 4, and they did that again with this game here. So
They do have a wide variety of talent from all grade levels on that program. Obviously, April, as a junior, is the top player on the floor, but there's been sets this year where they've came back and won, and they've been able to take away some pretty good matches. There's been a couple that they
Absolutely.
lost that they think they should have won, but at the same time, every night that they're going to be competitive in whatever opponent they're playing up against. And this weekend, it should be a pretty good challenge for them this weekend, taking on at UW Stout.
Right.
So, talking about the volleyball still, can they carry this momentum into a possible WIAC championship?
Exactly like I said, I think it's doable. It's going to be tough, but just like the Brewers winning the NL Central, I think it's still in sights. It's still doable. You just have to win those key games, and I think they're like I said, a well-oiled machine is well-oiled to do just that. So I think definitely.
Yeah, I think they have the talent. I think they're primed to do it. They match up well with all the other WIAC teams. So, Alex is the expert here on the volleyball team. He says they can do it. So I believe they can do it.
I think they also have their sights set on an even bigger goal in making the NCAA postseason as well, if they can get past the other teams in the WIAC as well in that conference tournament. So let's see.
Lofty goals for the volleyball team this year, but definitely achievable.
Go Dogs!
We'll see what they can do. Pointers look to continue their winning streak this weekend when they head to the UW Whitewater Dig Panichi Classic. After a quick commercial break, we'll be back with your Motorsports update and all things NBA preseason and the Packers. Welcome back. The NBA preseason got underway this past weekend. The biggest game of the weekend was the Nuggets versus the Lakers, where we saw LeBron James in his first game as an LA Laker. The Warriors and the Celtics are the two favorites to win the championship this season. So guys, what was the biggest player move this offseason?
I mean, it's LeBron James to LA, absolutely no doubt about it. But other than that, I think there was a lot of key moves that will, I think, be interesting to watch how they play out. Number one is Julius Randle leaving LA, going to New Orleans, teaming up with Anthony Davis. I think he could win Most Improved Player of the Year in that situation. They may look to him to either play the three or the stretch four if they put Anthony Davis in the post, which is what it seems like they might be doing in New Orleans. So definitely an interesting situation down there with Julius Randle being added to the mix. Dwight Howard, he headed over to Washington, D.C. and play for the Wizards, fill that big man role. I think that team's poised for a second round playoff spot this year. They haven't been able to make it out in the first round. I think they can this year with Dwight Howard being added. I think he's going to have one of his better seasons in the last couple of years. Another one that, us Wisconsinites might take some interest in is Jabari Parker heading down south to Chicago. He was inconsistent. He was unreliable. He wasn't very good, plain and simple, in Milwaukee. You couldn't trust him with the ball in his hands because he'd take it selfishly and throw up shots that were unnecessary. So going back to his hometown in Chicago, playing for his Bulls, he could break out. He could find, a unique niche in that system with the Bulls. But other than that, I think those are the biggest moves I've paid attention to. Obviously, you had a lot of people going to the Lakers. You had DeMarcus Cousins to the Warriors, obviously a huge one I didn't mention. And a couple others. I'll let Jake harp on the other ones. But
yeah, I got a few more. I was going to hit on Boogie just a little bit. I guess we're not going to know until late in the season how that actually ends up turning out. Of course, you got Kawhi Leonard, who's now up in Canada.
Yep.
And his laugh has now become famous. I think that's the first time we've ever heard Kawhi Leonard laugh. And it's going to be interesting to see him up there, see how the season goes.
DeMar DeRozan with San Antonio as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. I'm very interested to see, though, if Kawhi Leonard actually has any potential interest in re-signing there. And then another one that might be flying under the radar, he's pretty old at this point, but Dwayne Wade is returning home to the Miami Heat. Miami was one of those middle-of-the-road teams last year. They have Hassan Whiteside, a couple other good players, and who knows, if Wade can put together a decent season, he might be able to help push them over the edge back home in Miami one more time.
The farewell tour, I think that team's a playoff team. I've been saying that since day one. They're probably looking at the highest 6 seed, the lowest an 8 seed in the East, so they will get to the playoffs. Dwayne Wade won't go out like Kobe without a playoff spot because I do think his last game will be a playoff game, hopefully in Miami, will be the proper send-off for D. Wade. But yeah, definitely a good note with D. Wade. I think that was a nice little touch as well, him re-signing with Miami for one more year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you guys touched on all the big players. The only big superstar I think that you guys missed was Carmelo Anthony going to Atlanta and then finding his way into Houston.
First team overrated, first team, I'm an Oklahoma City Thunder fan, so maybe I'm letting my bias get the best of me, but look, the guy has been overrated for years. He hasn't been his same self since his first or second year in New York. I don't think it's as big as a move. I think he needs to find a mental state where he knows he's the fourth option on that team offensively. He is not the first option. He is not the second option. He couldn't find that niche mentally in Oklahoma City because he didn't realize Russell Westbrook and Paul George were the top guys. Now in Houston, he sits behind Chris Paul, James Harden, and Clint Capella offensively. So if he can fill his role correctly, I think he'll be great. But if not, we're going to see a lot of what happened in Oklahoma City last year.
Yeah, it should definitely be an interesting NBA season for sure. Got a lot to look forward to at the end of October.
Absolutely.
What are your guys' playoffs and finals predictions for this season?
I won't run through my entire playoff field, but I'll give you kind of my Western Conference Final, Eastern Conference Final, and Finals predictions. So Eastern Conference, I think it will be Toronto and Boston in the Eastern Conference Final. I think Philadelphia will have to wait one more year before they get that. Boston representing the Eastern Conference, of course, just because I think they have too many pieces to not get there if they stay healthy, unlike they did last year. In the Western Conference, I'm kind of split on what we're going to see in the Western Conference. Obviously the Warriors, but the Rockets, and for some reason I'm stuck on the Lakers. I don't think it'll happen. I don't even know if they'll get out of the first round, but for some reason I think the craziness and the presence of LeBron James might get them there, but I won't go that direction. I'm going to say we have a rematch of last year in the Rockets and Warriors. We have the Warriors winning the finals again like we do every year because there's no parity in the NBA.
Nope, no.
Yeah, the likelihood of the same teams as last year being there is quite high. So I'm going to mix it up a little bit and say my surprise team coming out of the West is going to be the Utah Jazz.
They'll be a dark horse this year for sure.
They definitely will be. I don't know if they can beat a team in the Rockets or especially the Warriors, but I think that they're going to have a great season overall and put up a fight in the postseason no matter who they're facing. I think Boston for sure. It has to be Boston out of the East. It has to be. But I think that Philadelphia, again, has potential to take them to probably 7 games. And I think Philadelphia even has potential to beat a team in Toronto who famously falls apart every single year in the playoffs. However, Dwayne Casey now gone, Kawhi Leonard playing a big role for that team. So who knows? But, it's not even game 1 of the NBA season yet, so a lot of things could change before the playoffs.
Yeah, I'll keep mine short. I think we're going to see the best of the best again this year. Obviously, the Warriors are going to come out on top in the West, and I think the Celtics this year will finally have that open opportunity now to get back to the finals for the first time in 10 years since they had the big three in Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen. So I think it'll be Warriors-Celtics for the finals next June. Should be interesting. Really good season. I got a lot to look forward to. We now throw it over to sports producer Joey Huebsch for our Motorsports update.
Thanks, Michael. The third race of the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series playoffs took place Sunday at Charlotte Motor Speedway's Roval, and it sure lived up to all of the hype. After being relatively calm for the first 80 laps, the intensity for the final 2 transfer spots and the race win increased tremendously. Ryan Blaney, Clint Boyer, and Alex Bowman were within 5 points of each other for the final 2 spots, and Brad Keselowski and Kyle Larson were battling for the race lead. The caution came out with less than 8 laps to go, and on the restart, a huge wreck occurred in turn 1 when the front row of Brad Keselowski and Kyle Larson missed the turn and piled into the safer barrier and collecting others. On the final restart, Martin Truex Jr. and Jimmy Johnson drove away from the field and decided the race win between themselves. On the final lap, Jimmy Johnson was able to get side-by-side with Truex going into the front stretch chicane, but drove into the corner too deep and spun out and collected Truex in the process. This allowed Team Penske's Ryan Blaney, who was running third at the time, to drive by both Truex and Johnson to get his second career win and the inaugural victory at the Roval. Jimmy Johnson finished 8th, while Martin Truex Jr. finished 14th. Due to Kyle Larson gaining 1 position on the final lap, he created a 3-way tie for 11th in the standings between himself, Eric Almirola, and Jimmy Johnson. Johnson was eliminated from the playoffs due to his best finish in the round being 8th and the other 2 drivers having better finishes than him. Johnson, Austin Dillon, Eric Jones, and Denny Hamlin were the 4 drivers eliminated from the playoffs. The Cup Series now heads to the Monster Mile, Dover International Speedway, for the first race in the round of 12. Jimmy Johnson looks to collect his 12th win at the track and forget about last weekend's race. The second race of the round of 12 in the Xfinity Series playoffs took place Saturday at the Roval. Stewart-Haas Racing's Chase Briscoe led the last 24 laps to capture his first career Xfinity Series win. In his final Xfinity Series race, Chip Ganassi Racing's Justin Marks finished second. Team Penske's Austin Cindric was the highest playoff contender and finished third. They also head to the Monster Mile this Saturday for the round of 12 elimination race. That is all I have for this week's Motorsports Update. I'll now send it back to our host, Michael.
Thanks, Joey. The Green Bay Packers captured their second win of the season Sunday against the Buffalo Bills, winning 22-0. Aaron Rodgers had a good game against the Buffalo Bills defense that held the Vikings to 6 points the previous week. He completed 22 of his 40 passes for 298 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception. Aaron Jones led the Packers rushing attack, rushing for 65 yards and 1 touchdown on 11 carries. Devontae Adams led the Packers in receiving with 8 receptions for 81 yards. Jimmy Graham caught Rodgers' lone touchdown pass. The Packers posted its first shutout win since a 9-0 win over the New York Jets in 2010. So guys, what stood out to you from this game?
I remember that 9-0 game. I remember exactly where it was, which is funny.
It was Halloween 2010.
Yeah, and now that I remember what the game was, I remember where I was. I just got done trick-or-treating, which is just interesting because I didn't realize that. Okay, never mind. I'll get off my spiel. But what stood out to me was the fact that the Packers defense actually looked good. They shut out a defense, which, look, I didn't even expect that against the Buffalo Bills. So that's a positive. Though it's almost like a JV game in the NFL against the Buffalo Bills. Well, it wasn't for the Vikings, but it was for the Packers, it seemed. It's still a good experience for a young defense that's looking to take that next step, and it's going to have to happen sometime throughout this season because the Packers still want to poise up and get ready for a playoff run. And that defense has to be competent. It's as simple as that. But last time the Packers had a not even above average. They were the 25th ranked defense the year they won the Super Bowl. The year they went 15-1, they were the 32nd ranked defense. The worst defense in the league when they went 15-1. So if they can have a semi-competent defense, I'm talking top 20, then they could actually make a run. So this was good to see a shutout. Good to see them get to the opposing quarterback. I think it was 6 sacks on Josh Allen. Yep. The defense was the number one thing that stood out to me. But there were a couple other things, but I'll let Jake take the next couple.
Yeah, Josh Allen, the most sacked quarterback in the NFL right now, and we had a big part in that last week. I think something else that really jumped out to me, turn last week, he only had 7 carries, but he made a big impact on the game. And then this week, he only had 11 carries, but he had a big game on very limited touches. So Aaron Jones coming back, producing on even the limited touches, I think that's big, and I think he's just going to be a bigger part of the offense as we roll on, especially with Rodgers' lingering injury. So it's great that we have an actual number one running back. I do being somewhat concerned, though, still over Rodgers. He has bad numbers outside the pocket, and as we all know, outside the pocket is what made Aaron Rodgers Aaron Rodgers. That is where he's special. That is where he excels. And I think he was only like 6 for 15 or something in that range outside of the pocket against the Bills. And his knee just looks suspect, man. It worries me, especially this early in the season.
No doubt.
Yeah, and I think the offense didn't have that great of a game, but the defense really stepped it up and had their best showing in the year so far. And hopefully this weekend against Detroit, they'll have a much better outcome for the tough competition against Detroit. What stood out to you, or what do you think, guys, think it took 4 games for Jimmy Graham to get his first touchdown of the season?
It's just a matter of getting him involved, getting him into the mix, trying not to use him as a blocker and use him more as a pass catcher. I mean, we have Mercedes Lewis, who is the number 1 pass blocking tight end in the NFL, according to Pro Football Focus last year. Think about that. And we use Jimmy Graham more than Mercedes Lewis when it comes to blocking. So it's a matter of putting down strategies and figuring out ways that are unique, because you know what? Jimmy Graham's a big threat. Defenses are not going to let him get open that easily. So it's a way of finding unique ways to get him involved. And I mean, I'm not too worried about it. I think as the season goes on, we'll see more unique looks for Jimmy Graham. I don't think he's the number 1 tight end in the league by any means, but he's definitely talented in the fact that he has height, he has size, he has speed. And that's pretty rare at the tight end position to have all 3 of those things. So we'll see. I think it's a matter of just getting him involved in different ways. And the same thing probably won't work twice with Jimmy Graham.
So for me, I think Jimmy Graham, again, he's not a blocking tight end. He's very talented. He can run routes. He's got great hands. The Packers are famous for not using tight ends in the way that they should. Even going all the way back to Jermichael Finley, who was quicker than a lot of the wide receivers. He ran amazing routes. We still didn't use him the way that we should. I don't think Jimmy Graham has been used properly since he left New Orleans. I don't think that they used him correctly in Seattle, and I don't think they were using him correctly in Green Bay. As far as not catching a touchdown pass, again, I think that's just something that comes along with not utilizing him, especially in the red zone, the way that we potentially could. There are other big names around the league that haven't scored a touchdown. Julio Jones, Odell Beckham come to mind. So I just think it's more so the scheme, and I think Lance Kendricks was the best tight end and the best usage tight end that we've had for a long time. And ever since he walked, we've tried 3 or 4 different tight ends, and none of them have really worked that well. So I am happy that Jimmy Graham is in Green Bay. I think they need to find a better way to utilize him.
Yeah, Graham has been a great sign, but I think the Packers are still feeling the effects of releasing Jared Cook after the 2016 season.
Who is the number 1 tight end in football right now when it comes to receptions and yards? Yeah.
Jared Cook, yep.
And he had the play of the year with Aaron Rodgers a couple of years ago. I mean, he was a great tight end. And again, I said since he walked, we tried Martellus Bennett. We're now trying Jimmy Graham. We have Lance Kendricks. None of them are great. So
Cook's doing just fine in Oakland. Well, but for Green Bay, the Packers this weekend taking on the road Sunday against the Detroit Lions. Kickoff is set for noon. After our final commercial break, we'll be back with the MLB and our buy or sell segment.
UW Stevens Point is home.
It's a university where professors know your name and get you involved in research.
They inspire us to realize big dreams.
At UW Stevens Point, sustainability is what we stand for.
Our beautiful campus encourages exploration, developing new fields, and problem solving for the real world.
It's a great place to launch your career.
UW Stevens Point is home.
Apply today at uwsp.edu.
Welcome back. The MLB playoffs are finally here. There were 2 NL Division tiebreaker games on Monday to determine the NL's 1 and 2 seeds, as well as the wildcard game participants. But for the first tiebreaker game was the NL Central. The Milwaukee Brewers defeated the Chicago Cubs 3-1 to clinch their first division title since 2011. With the win, the Brewers also clinched the NL's number 1 seed and home field advantage throughout the NL playoffs. The other tiebreaker game was for the NL West. The Los Angeles Dodgers won 5-2 over the Colorado Rockies. The Dodgers now play the Atlanta Braves in the NLDS. The Rockies won 2-1 over the Cubs in the NL wildcard game, while the New York Yankees won 7-2 over the Oakland Athletics in the AL wildcard game. In the ALDS, the Boston Red Sox faced the New York Yankees, while the defending champion Houston Astros played the Cleveland Indians. In the NLDS, the Milwaukee Brewers faced the Colorado Rockies, while the Los Angeles Dodgers play the Atlanta Braves. Both NLDS series start later today, while both ALDS series start tomorrow. So guys, since the Brewers are the NL's number 1 seed, can they go all the way to the World Series this year?
I believe that they can. I kind of said this a little bit last night when Alex and I were talking, but I think that the matchup against the Rockies is great. I think that the Brewers have a lot of power throughout their lineup, so playing in the thin air in Colorado is going to be great. They have the pitching staff and the depth to be able to do it. I think that our biggest threat is going to be the Dodgers, and if we can figure out how to beat them, I don't see why we can't make it to the World Series. I think, again, we have such a deep pitching staff and rotation. We have so many people who are hitting so well at the plate right now, including Ryan Braun. We have guys like Moustakas that have been there before, made deep runs in the playoffs. I think that this Brewers team is primed to make it to the World Series.
Yeah, that was super well said. I'm with you. I think the matchup with Colorado is going to be, I think, other than the Yankees-Red Sox, will be the best one of the divisional round series. I think it's going 4 or 5 games for sure. I think the Rockies will definitely sneak one out at some point. You mentioned the bullpen. You mentioned the pitching for the Brewers. I love that they're starting a guy like Brandon Woodruff tonight, a reliever, and going relievers all the way. I like that they're using that strategy. They're implementing that strategy like they did last week against the St. Louis Cardinals, I believe it was. Now, going on, Friday, Ulysse Shashin will start for the Brewers. He was terrific in that game 163 against the Cubs. So the pitching has been terrific. The left side of the infield for the Rockies, I think it's the best remaining in the playoffs in all of the league. You have Trevor Story at shortstop. You have Nolan Arenado at third base. That's a very good left side, which is always concerning for hitters. But nonetheless, the Brewers do have the firepower to do it. Do I think they do it? I try to keep my bias out of it. It's going to be tough to do. I'll be completely honest. They can do it. But it is a matter of inexperience that will come into play both as a managerial standpoint and from a player standpoint. Only 7 guys in this Brewers roster of 25 now, as they cut down, have played in the playoffs before. Notable cuts from the NLDS roster that the Brewers had to cut down to 25. Eric Thames left off, Zach Davies left off, Chase Anderson left off. Notable cuts.
Yeah, and I said a couple weeks ago that my World Series prediction for the NL was the Rockies going, but the Brewers have a very high chance of proving me wrong right there. And while the Brewers don't have a top starter this year in their rotation, their bullpen has been absolutely terrific. Definitely the best bullpen, I think, in Major League Baseball this year.
Definitely one of them, yeah.
Yeah, if guys don't get going right away, they always have guys that they can bring in and keep the game close for them. Something that the Brewers have really benefited from this season, and of course the power at the plate as well. Christian Yelich, man, you got to give that guy credit, so much credit.
Yeah, exactly. Christian Yelich has been amazing, but just to talk about the pitching again for a quick second. The A's tried the whole start relievers all the way through the game experiment. Did not work for the A's very well last night. 7-2 loss to the Yankees, but as you mentioned, Alex, the Brewers did this successfully just about a week, maybe 2 weeks ago now against St. Louis. So they've done it before, they've done it successfully. And Zach Davies, for me, kind of disappointing. He was going to be our top guy, if not, top 2 guys heading into this season. Now he's not even.
The injury set in, and he just never returned back to his good
Exactly.
self.
Now he's not even on the roster in the postseason. Kind of disappointing, but again, thankful for that amazing bullpen that we have.
Hey, much love to Zach Davies. He joined me on Sports Beat back in April.
Oh, great guy, great pitcher.
Right, back in April.
Just disappointing that he wasn't able to come to fruition this season.
You're spot on. I mean, I hope he returns to his full self, because if that guy does reach his sky-high potential, he could be one of the top aces in the league. It's flat out the truth. But he has not been able to do so far. It's okay he gets left off, because obviously we need our top guys. We talked about it with the Pointers football team. Now we got to talk about it with the Brewers. You want your top 9 guys in the game in every position. So Zach Davies doesn't fit into one of those roles right now. I'm still glad he's along for the ride. Same with Eric Thames. He doesn't fit into the role right now. The top left-handed bat right now is Curtis Granderson. So they stuck with him rather than Thames. I think that's a good move, and it'll be fun to watch as the playoffs roll on.
And Thames did big things for us early in the season to help get us in this position.
Right.
So, shout out to Eric Thames as well.
October baseball is the best kind of baseball, and I'm glad that we're finally in that time of year again. And which teams now will go to the NLCS and the ALCS?
I have Brewers, Dodgers, Red Sox, Astros, I think is what I went with. I'd have to look at the bracket again. But I did predict Red Sox, Brewers, with the Red Sox coming out on top, because the Red Sox have just flat out been the best team in baseball, so dominant. But I think the Astros could make a repeat run. I think every team that's left right now of the 8 could make some sort of run. You look at the Red Sox-Yankees series. Those are the 2 teams with the most wins.
That should be a
other
very
than the
good
Astros.
series.
2 of the 3 teams with the most wins in the whole league. So that's going. How many brawls are we going to have in that series? I'm just curious. I'm serious. How many brawls? How many
might have a
benches
few.
clearing?
We might have
how
a
many
few.
benches clearing moments are we going to have in the Red Sox-Yankees
Well,
series?
there'll be-
Because first playoff meeting for those 2 teams since 2004, 14 years.
And what a series that was.
And both stacked rosters right now, incredibly talented rosters. So I'm going to give the boring answer, the same answer as Alex. I think in the NL, the better 2 teams are going to win their first series, so I think it's going to be Brewers-Dodgers. And then I think that you're going to have Houston there. They still have a really talented squad, great pitching staff, MVP in Jose Altuve. And I think that they're going to match up pretty well against the Red Sox. I still don't see the Red Sox losing. So, for me, same 4 teams as Alex.
The top 2 seeds, so the number 1 seed in each division, probably won't make it there, but I think it's the safe pick. I think it is probably what looks like what's going to happen in the Brewers and Red Sox. But, it's October. Anything can happen. We've seen that time and time again when it comes to playoff baseball. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I have the Rockies making the World Series, but I'm pretty sure the Brewers could prove me wrong right there. I have them up against the Dodgers, and then Red Sox, Astros, with the Red Sox going to the World Series and the Rockies going to the World Series.
That would be a fun series.
Rematch of 07.
Yes.
Yeah, could be interesting. Who knows? Playoff baseball is the best. Now to wrap up the show, guys, let's do some buy or sell. First one up, Patrick Mahomes will win MVP this season.
I'm buying that 100% if he stays healthy. I think the guy, he's a product partially of an Andy Reid system, which thrives so good early in the season, but he also possesses every intangible, every characteristic of a franchise quarterback. His poise in the pocket, his rocket arm, which we always knew existed, his mobility is incredible. His IQ is high, and he's way more mature playing the quarterback position at his age than I ever thought he would be. So I'll buy that 100%.
It's also a buy for me, and there's a couple simple reasons why. Your usual front runners, as in your Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, those guys, it seems like, are already out of the mix. Tom Brady not having as spectacular of a season in the past as he had in the past. Aaron Rodgers hurt. He's not going to be MVP. And then it comes down to a guy like a Khalil Mack for me, if he can keep up what he's been doing for the Bears and being as dominant as he has been. But everyone knows that the quarterback is going to get the nod over the defensive player. So even if Khalil Mack has the greatest defensive season in all of football history, if Patrick Mahomes keeps up what he's been doing this first 4 weeks, I think Mahomes is your MVP hands down.
Closest defensive player to winning MVP was J.J. Watt back in 2014, but it's an easy buy for me. Mahomes has definitely been the best quarterback this season so far. Next one, the San Jose Sharks have 3 of the best defensemen in the NHL. You guys buying that?
I'll give you a loan because this is going to be my first season actually diving into hockey. I decided last night I'm an Edmonton Oilers fan.
Good choice. Fan now.
I'm an Oilers fan.
Connor McDavid?
Connor McDavid has always been the only player that I've ever actually watched as they incline to the best player in the NHL. So I decided I'm an Oilers fan starting yesterday. So I'm going to give you a loan because I have no idea.
And I will say yes, they absolutely do have 3 of the best defensemen. Not the best 3 defensemen, but 3 of the top 10 defensemen in the NHL easily. Carlson was a massive pickup for the Sharks.
Oh, for sure.
Insane. And then they also have Burns, and that not only do they have some of the best, or 3 best defensemen, they have some of the best forwards in Joe Pavelski and others. So this is going to be a scary, scary team all season long.
Definite buy for me. I think the Sharks are going to win the Pacific this year, and no doubt about that. Might even win the Cup if they go that far.
Yeah, they definitely have a chance to at least be there, that's for sure.
Next one, the Washington Capitals repeat as NHL champions. You guys buying that?
I don't buy it. Sorry, Malik. He's back in the control room right now, but I don't, simply because it was a struggle for them to get through the playoffs last year. They have to face an opponent every year in the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are always hungry and are always right there to I guess this year they would be dethroning the Capitals.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have to put up with teams, again, like the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the San Jose Sharks. I mean, the list goes on. It is hard to repeat as champions. Even though they did it last year, they didn't do it too convincingly in my mind. I know Malik
Definitely
would argue with me on that.
But Jake, you the first thing you mentioned was how Washington's toughest competition is Pittsburgh, and if I'm not mistaken, let me look at the record book. Didn't they beat it was the Bruins last night, wasn't it?
They beat the Bruins.
I thought it was the Penguins, but still, they killed the Bruins, who are always solid. 7-0 on opening night. This team looks convincing. I don't know hockey very well again, but I'll buy it. There's rarely repeats in hockey, but I do want to see it happen. Give me!
You know who was the last repeat? The Pittsburgh Penguins. Just a couple years ago, and they were that close to a three-peat. Again, first game of the season. Everything changes in the NHL the further that you get on, or the further that you go on in the season. So yeah. Big win last night for the Capitals. They did look impressive. Doesn't mean that they're going to be Stanley Cup champions.
Easy sell. There's too many good teams out there in the NHL. Should be a good season this year. And finally, the Los Angeles Lakers will make the playoffs this season. Buy or sell?
I'm going to let you go first.
I'm going to buy it. I've been buying it ever since LeBron said that he was going to go there. I think that the team, even without LeBron, might have had a chance at an 8 seed. I think that they're a good up-and-coming young team. I don't know what I believe about Luke Walton. I don't know if he's a good coach, a bad coach. And who knows if LeBron's going to run him out of town like we've seen him do before. But
listen, if you think LeBron James, the best player we've seen in 2 decades, isn't making the playoffs, you're out of your mind.
I'll buy that too. I think the Lakers have a chance. That's all we have for you today on the show. I'd like to thank Alex and Jake for joining me today on the show, and a big thank you to our technical staff for making all of their hard work possible. Be sure to check us out on Facebook at SBTV UWSP Television, or follow us on Twitter at SBTV_UWSP. Also visit the UWSP homepage to locate all your Pointer athletic information. We'll see you next week on the Sports Hub.